If you know what to do but you're not doing it, it's probably not a discipline problem. I know that that might sound strange at first because discipline is usually the first thing people blame. They say, I just need more motivation. I need to stop procrastinating. I need to get my life together. I need to be more disciplined. But what if the problem isn't that you lack discipline? What if the real issue is that there's something underneath the action that doesn't feel safe yet? Because here's what I've noticed. Most people are not actually struggling with information. They already know the habit they need to build. They know the call they need to make. They know the conversation they need to have. They know they should apply for the job, start the project, go to the gym, create the content, set the boundary, take the first step. They know, and yet they don't move. So the question becomes, why? The mistake most people make. Most people respond to resistance by trying to overpower themselves. They turn life into a war against their own nervous system. They try to force momentum, force productivity, force consistency, and for a little while sometimes it works, but eventually they crash because force creates friction, and friction eventually creates exhaustion. That's why so many people live in cycles. A burst of motivation, then burnout. A moment of clarity, then avoidance. A new beginning, then another restart. And eventually people begin creating identities around these cycles. I'm lazy. I never finish things. I'm inconsistent. I just don't have discipline. But what if none of these things are true? What if your resistance isn't evidence that you're broken? What if it's information? Resistance is often protective. This is a part people rarely talk about. Resistance is often protective. There's usually a reason a part of you does not want to move forward yet, and that reason may not even be logical. It may be emotional, energetic, subconscious, because human beings are not just logical creatures. We are emotional patterning systems. We are memory systems. We are survival systems. And survival does not always care about growth. Survival cares about familiarity. That's important to understand, because your nervous system will often choose a familiar pain over an unfamiliar possibility, even when the possibility is better. Because familiar feels safe, and the unknown, even when beautiful, can feel dangerous. Examples of hidden avoidance. Sometimes what you're avoiding isn't failure, but sometimes it's the exact opposite. Sometimes you're avoiding success, because success changes things. Success creates visibility, responsibility, expectations, pressure. Sometimes people delay their next level because a part of them knows, if this actually works, my life changes, and change can feel terrifying, even positive change. Other times, what you're avoiding is exposure, being seen, being judged, being vulnerable. Maybe you want to create content, but deep down you're afraid people will criticize you. Maybe you want to apply for that role, but you're afraid of rejection. Maybe you want to build the business, but you're afraid you won't be able to sustain it. Maybe you want love, but you're afraid of being hurt again. So instead of consciously saying, I'm afraid, the mind creates delay, procrastination, distraction, overthinking, endless preparation. Not because you're lazy, but because something inside you is trying to protect you from discomfort. The loop of self-attack. Now here's where it gets even more painful. Most people don't realize the protection pattern, so instead they attack themselves for having it. And this creates a secondary wound. First there is fear. Then comes shame about the fear. And once shame enters the system, people become even less likely to move, because now the action isn't connected only to uncertainty, now it's connected to self-judgment also. This is why force rarely creates lasting transformation, because shame does not create sustainable movement. Understanding does. Awareness does. Compassion does. A different approach. So instead of trying to dominate yourself, try listening to yourself. Not every delay is sabotage. Sometimes it's information. Sometimes there's a conversation inside yourself that hasn't been acknowledged yet. And the moment you stop fighting yourself long enough to listen, something begins to soften. This is why awareness matters so much. Awareness interrupts unconscious cycles. Awareness allows you to see what's actually happening underneath the surface. And once you can see it, you can work with it instead of against it. The real shift. The real shift happens when you stop asking, how do I force myself to act? And begin asking, what feels unsafe about this? That question changes everything, because now you're no longer treating yourself like a machine. You're treating yourself like a human being. And human beings are layered, complex, emotional, protective, adaptive. Sometimes the part of you avoiding action isn't your enemy. Sometimes it's the younger part of you that learned movement was dangerous. Maybe you were criticized when you tried. Maybe you were rejected when you expressed yourself. Maybe you failed publicly once and your nervous system never forgot it. So now every new beginning carries emotional weight, and you can't heal that through punishment. The concrete step. So here's what I want you to do today. Simple, quiet, direct. I want you to sit with this question. If I actually did this, what feels uncomfortable about it? And be honest, not performative honest, real honest. Maybe the answer is, if I succeed, people will expect more from me. If I try, I might fail. If I put myself out there, I might be judged. If I change, I might outgrow people. If I finally move forward, I can no longer hide behind potential. That last one is powerful because potential feels safe. Potential allows us to imagine a future without risking anything in the present. Action changes the equation. Action reveals reality, and reality can feel vulnerable. Naming the fear changes the pattern. But here's the beautiful thing. The moment you name the fear, it loses some of its control. Because unnamed fear runs in the background. Named fear becomes visible, and visibility creates choice. You may still feel resistant, but now you understand it. Now you can move with awareness instead of confusion. And that changes the energy completely. Closing reflection. So maybe the next time in your life is not becoming more disciplined. Maybe the next step is becoming more honest, more aware, more compassionate toward the parts of you that are scared. Because healing isn't forcing yourself into action. Healing is creating enough internal safety that movement becomes possible again. And sometimes the first real breakthrough is simply realizing I'm not lazy. I'm avoiding something. That awareness alone can change your entire direction. If this episode resonated with you, don't just move past it. Sit with it. Journal with it. Reflect on it. And most importantly, be honest with yourself about what's underneath the resistance. Because once you understand the real pattern, you stop fighting yourself. And that's where genuine movement begins. And if you know someone who keeps saying, I know what I should do, I'm just not doing it, send this episode to them. It may be the first time they realize they're not broken. They're protecting something. And now they can finally begin to move again.